Hi there, can you open this door, please?
For what?
A stranger is at your front door. An actual nightmare caught on camera. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
Hi there, can you open this door, please?
For what?
I just want to make sure that everything's okay. There seems to be something going on.
What do you mean?
I don't know, I just figured I'd check on something.
According to police, this man showed up at a family's home in Fairfield, California, and he got inside. The suspect in this case was just in court, and we are learning from that court appearance that there is much more to this story. So let's go back to this video that has gone viral. It happened on April 7th, 2026 in Fairfield, California, which is about an hour north of San Francisco. According to the Fairfield Police Department, a pregnant woman and her 5-year-old son were home alone. The dad had just stepped out to run an errand, and then the doorbell rings.
Hi there, can you open this door, please?
For what?
The father, who's watching on his phone, talks to this person at their door through the camera. So the dad tells him to leave.
Get out of my house.
Open this. Where's your daughter, man? Where's your daughter,
What are
man?
you talking about?
Where's your daughter? Who's in there with you?
Bro, if you don't
Open
leave...
this fucking door. Open this door, I'm breaking the down. You understand me?
According to police, the dad, who is still watching all of this unfold on his phone, has turned around and he is rushing home with his wife, who is pregnant, and their young son inside the house. Meanwhile, this man who's outside, he continues to talk. He identifies himself with a strange name.
I don't know who you are. You don't belong to this neighborhood. That's for sure.
This is my neighborhood, though.
Yeah, I live there. I don't know you.
My name is Harry Dresden, mother. Open the door. This is my neighborhood. Open the door. Now, or I will end you. Do you understand me?
So the name Harry Dresden, that is apparently a fictional wizard detective from a book series called The Dresden Files. And according to police, that is who this man claimed to be, but it's not his real name. He allegedly then starts ripping things off the wall. The front door holds, but according to the Fairfield Police Department, the man whose real name is Jason Nichols found another way in, a sliding glass door, and now he's inside the house. The mom and her son, they're hiding in the garage, according to court filings. The Ring camera inside then captures what happens next.
You try me, I swear to God. Do you understand me?
The dad finally arrives home, and he grabs a shovel to try and bring this situation to an end.
Where the out of my house, dumbass? You think you can I will save that little girl. What's the third room? What the I'm telling you, I'm giving you a chance right now, man. What's the third room, bro? I'm giving you a chance. Get the out of my house. What's the third room, bro? I'm telling you, get the out of my house. Please. Just answer the question. Get the out of my house. Answer the question, please. There's no one in there. There's 3 rooms, man.
I don't know who you are. You better get I don't know who you're talking about, man.
Why do I hear screaming?
Are you military?
Yes.
Okay. Can you help me out? Okay.
Yes.
I understand what you're going through right now.
Yes.
Can you step outside?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Will. Thank you for asking.
According to the New York Post, authorities have since confirmed that Jason Nichols is not a military veteran, despite what he told the homeowner in that moment. Now, this video doesn't show the fight, but according to the Fairfield Police Department, both men sustained head injuries, and police say they arrived minutes later. Now, according to the Fairfield Police and court records, Nichols was booked on multiple felony charges: burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, making criminal threats, and vandalism. That was back on April 7th, and now we're learning some new information, and it is very concerning. From Nichols' recent court appearance, there are new details that are taking this case to the next level. According to court records that were obtained by the New York Post, Jason Nichols made his first court appearance on April 13th, which is 6 days after the break-in. He didn't enter a plea on those charges, and the judge did increase his bail to $250,000. It has been said that Nichols lived in the area of this family, which is terrifying if that's true. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. According to the judge, the safety of the victims is paramount in this case. But apparently what we saw allegedly take place on April 7th isn't the only issue that Nichols has recently had, because there is now a new charge he is facing, and it is not connected to that viral Ring doorbell incident that we've been talking about. According to this recent statement from the Fairfield Police Department, there's a witness that came forward, and that witness reported an alleged encounter between Nichols and their child on April 5th, which is 2 days before the incident with the other family. Police say they investigated, and Nichols is now facing an additional charge, and that is a charge of annoying or molesting a child under 18. The police statement says the investigation is active, and due to the involvement of a minor, they're not releasing more information on it. Court records show that Nichols will next be in court on April 23rd. Joining us now to talk more about this case is retired police commander and the host of Profiling Evil, Mike King. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. There are times where I'm like, do I really need my Ring doorbell? Because you pay like the monthly subscription. You see this story and you're like, do I have enough Ring doorbells at my house? I mean, it's terrifying.
Cow. Chris, I'm with you. I mean, that's exactly the thought I had. I think of this case. I think of Nancy Guthrie case.
Yeah.
The amount of information that comes, and frankly, this particular one was so disturbing that if people don't have one, they better start thinking about getting one.
Yeah, and there's just so much to take away from this doorbell camera video that's put out there. You have this person at the front door. He clearly is living in some sort of fantasy world based on what he's saying. First off, for the officers who are responding to this, as this homeowner, he is fighting for his life, he would think, and protecting his family. Like, what is it like for the officers when you first arrive on scene and you probably know there's going to be a physical confrontation like this?
Well, I think the officers, I haven't seen the body cam imagery. I've seen what the doorbell image captured, but obviously there were a number of officers there. The challenge you face when you're a responding patrol officer is the immediacy of the event, because you might be the first officer on the scene and you're trying to work your way up. You're trying to have some kind of cover and concealment as you're approaching the home, because you know that you have what appears to be a violent offender there. And you're trying to make this decision. Do I go in alone because people are at risk, or do I wait until I have adequate backup? What I thought I saw in these images is that the law enforcement officers not only were able to confront the homeowner, because he's still carrying that shovel at first,
right,
but the predator is out on the porch area, it looks like. So they were able to quickly contain the scene and hang back a little bit, because it doesn't look like the officers engaged until there were a number of officers on site. But you've got so many things going through your mind, because you don't know whether you're going to be using less lethal force, whether you're going to be just putting your arm around the guy and walking him to the police car, or whether you might end up having to deploy deadly force.
All right. And I mean, in how many cases do we see the body camera video of an officer involved shooting where you just have someone who is having one of these? I don't even know if it's fair to call it an episode. Like, I don't know what was going on in his mind. I mean, clearly he's talking about things that, like fantasy characters and stuff like that. But, it feels like watching this and just seeing the Ring doorbell camera that it could have escalated to that, just depending on what happened. Apparently he got tired is what I read, and then kind of gave up. When you watch the Ring doorbell camera, because for me, I just see him getting angrier and angrier, and then it just, it's terrifying. But as someone who investigates cases, like, what are some of the moments as now you build your case that stood out to you?
Well, I think just when you look at the behavior that was involved, you have to kind of take into account a couple of different buckets of theory. Number one, that this might have been a truly concerned individual who came to the door with a belief that somebody inside was in trouble and that they were going to be the hero in this story and make sure that everything's well. you got to put that in a bucket. But then as you see the behavior changing, when you see a guy that's dressed with a bathrobe on and he's got flip-flop shoes on, and it clearly is like this was a spur of the moment decision. This was not someone that geared up and went to do a mission, and I'm hearing people say, well, maybe he's military, maybe he's not. We don't know any of that, and I don't think any of that has even been confirmed, but it doesn't matter. He's going there for a reason, whether it is a legitimate reason, like he truly believes something's there. Okay, but why didn't he call police instead? Or there's mental illness involved, and we have to consider that in this particular instance. But for the people inside the home or the responding officers, I don't care whether it's mental illness or an aggressive act. People deserve to be safe. Police officers deserve to be safe. That homeowner deserves to be safe. And quite frankly, in a country like ours, where so many people are armed behind their front doors, this guy's probably pretty dang lucky he didn't take a few rounds to the chest.
Yeah, and you think of this homeowner, he's at work or he's elsewhere and he's kind of watching on this doorbell camera, this conversation with this person, and he has a pregnant wife at home as well as his 5-year-old son, and they're inside. And then you have this person who is just trying to break the front door down of their house. It's terrifying, and it's like you think of, what's the motive for this? And we don't know at this point. You talk about, like, was it something where he actually believed that people were scared, which kind of reminds you of like the Pizzagate shooting from years ago in Washington, D.C. But then you also have Harry Dresden, which I'm unfamiliar with the books, but I guess it's some sort of like fantasy book detective that he said that he was, which is not his name. Like, when you hear that, where does that lead your mind as an investigator?
Well, you have to immediately go to this idea of what is created in fantasy and now being acted out. And clearly from those, and I don't know the character either. I've had to do a little research on that. It's probably great for the book writer because he's now getting a lot more attention, but you have to look at what's going on. What's the mindset? Why is this important? And what is the hero element in all of this that he's trying to act out? Because clearly, when you start having people do that, you've got two choices. One is they either are really living in a fantasy land, or he was just reading that book before he decided to go over, and that was the first name that came into his head. And we can read a lot into it, but until we really start seeing things like those personal kinds of manifestos, when they look at his digital devices, what's he socializing? What's he talking about? How is he responding? And he clearly is into kind of this, it seems to be anyway, that he's into this theatric Marvel or whatever kind of world, because even that earlier video in his life, like, I don't know, a few years ago, that's popped up on the web now, with him banging on another door, screaming that he's Batman, you start to think these are people that are immersed in fantasy. And then if there's anything like mental health issues or something else going on, where they then start to cross those lines and think they're going to go over and solve a problem.
I know the legal system can be different from state to state, but whether this was a case of, he's someone who, wanted to hurt this family because he knew them, or if it was a situation where he's just having some sort of psychotic break, like, how does that change the calculation of maybe what a punishment looks like, but then also just how the legal system handles him? If it's, hey, this is a mental health issue, or it's seen as maybe not a mental health issue, just more criminal conduct.
For the police officer responding, you don't care whether there's mental illness involved or not. It's a pretty simple job. There are elements of crimes, and if those elements are there, in this case, for instance, burglary, entering or remaining unlawfully with the intent to commit a theft, an assault, or any other kind of felony. You don't care whether that person's having a bad day or they didn't get warm cookies and milk when they got home from school yesterday. Your job is to solve that immediate problem. And then when it rolls over into the court system, then the court system has to deal with things that become really frustrating to us when we think about like mental illness, and should someone not have to be responsible because they're mentally ill. And I think we have to be compassionate to that and understanding. But when you have things like this particular case, or let's talk about the case of the Ukrainian woman who was murdered on a bus by someone
in Charlotte.
with mental illness.
Yeah.
If you're the family member or the victim or the person that's witnessing it, you don't care whether they're mentally ill or not. You need this person detained and put away and held until they're safe to return to society or they face some kind of legal punishment. I'm grateful as a former police officer that I never had to worry about what the final decision was, because my job was pretty easy: satisfy the element and solve the immediate problem. Make sure that there's peace and safety before you walk away from that home, and then let the courts sort it out.
Yeah. And in this case, he reportedly lives like in the backyard of where this took place. I mean, he lives right around the corner, and it's like, I know he's facing a pretty steep bond right now, but you wonder if he was somehow able to post that, his home is right there. That's his address. And it's like, how is that handled in a way where it's like, if you're this family, like, you don't like, do you have to move like this guy, like just being, right behind you? Like, I mean, that's one of those situations where you just wonder how that would play out. In court, the district attorney.
Chris, could I maybe interject something?
Yeah.
And I mapped that thing out, and this is the home where the event occurred. And I heard that same thing, that he lived behind them. There's no way he could have lived behind them, because you've got a 4-lane street directly behind the residence, which I found to be really interesting, because that means this guy had to have come from somewhere else. He's not the neighbor behind the house. And I'm wondering what that reporting is all about. And it might be that I'm just not understanding, but when you look at that location, he had to physically make an approach into a street that is a dead end street. So he was there specifically for a reason, whether he was wandering or whether he selected that home. But when I hear people saying, hey, the reason this is all happening this way is because he was in the backyard, I'm not seeing it.
So which house was the one, if you use your cursor, where this took place?
With this point on the rooftop.
Okay. Because you wonder too, I mean, you look at that, it's a cul-de-sac. It's not, right directly in the back of the cul-de-sac, and it's just, one of the houses along the way. And it's like, like, how do you even figure out, this person, like why they targeted that specific home?
Exactly. And that's why geography becomes so important in these cases too, as we hear people try to theorize, or maybe even the suspect themselves say why they might have known something. To me, they've got some splaining to do if they say, hey, I heard through the backyard, unless they heard it walking along the street, and that was what motivated it, or something like that. But I just think it's always so incredibly intriguing to pull up the geography and look at it. And again, this is a one-way in and one-way out to get to that home and to be in that neighborhood. I can't see, and I haven't looked at a Google Street image, for instance, but I cannot fathom that they wouldn't have had a back fence along that busy road, and that house is only approachable by the front, unless you climb over a fence, I guess.
No, that's a fair point. And I'm sure for investigators, like, you're trying to piece together every bit of like how this happened, like what were the mechanics of when it started and when it ended, and there's so much curiosity in terms of why he did it, what was going through his mind. But then you also watch the Ring doorbell camera. That kind of speaks for itself. Like, how much does that stuff, the fantasy world and all of this, even matter when it comes to prosecuting this case? Because so much of it is caught on camera and you can clearly see what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any kind of challenge in the criminal process if this does make it to a criminal case. If it ends up being a mental health issue, then it could actually be supporting evidence for a therapist or a psychologist or a forensic examiner to say this is proof of the delusion that was going on. That doesn't change the impact on the homeowner and the risk that this could have ended up being a shooting inside of a home. Or if he confronted that mother and child in the home, couldn't have possibly ended up in some kind of injury to them as well. So, I mean, this is one of those cases that you walk away saying, holy cow, how did something worse not happen?
I saw the district attorney in court said that this suspect, Nichols, said pretty bluntly, and allegedly he said this, quote, "I'm going to kill you." When someone says that, just in terms of the law and as you're building your case, because I know like conversationally, someone may say that almost as a joke and they don't really mean it. But at the same time, like on paper, that is a pretty significant threat to say to somebody. Like when someone says those words, how does that impact a case and potentially the charges that you can bring?
Well, again, I think it's going to be the totality because it is so egregious to hear those words. And for someone on the other side of the door, that's something that would cause you to defend yourself, knowing that the possibility of being killed is possibly imminent. That creates some real frightening things when you start talking thresholds of homes, because we've seen cases where people have, for instance, shot through the doorway or other things, and that's become a real legal challenge versus someone who gets inside the home like he did, and if something had happened. But when it comes to making the case more dangerous or not, I don't think it's going to change the complexity of the case a whole lot, other than be just more to add to the total behavior that this guy was incredibly threatening.
Yeah, and, you know, very well put. And you just wonder for this family too. It's like, even if this guy goes away, you know, once this, you know, and you move away, you get away from like just your peace of mind at home. It's going to take some time, I'm sure, to recover from that. Mike King, always great to have you on Law and Crime, host of Profiling Evil, but you also have a podcast that is very popular right now. What do people need to know about it? I know the final episode just went up.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, Gardens of Evil, inside the Zion Society cult. Folks, listening's free, but the proceeds that I get from advertising is actually going toward child advocacy issues and a new scholarship at Weber State University, my old alma mater, for criminal justice students. The idea behind the podcast is that it gives the victims of a horrendous cult that was broken up many years ago by a team of investigators that I was fortunate to lead, have finally asked for an opportunity to share their voice of what happened to them decades earlier. It's an incredibly powerful podcast. Went to #1 worldwide at Apple, and just yesterday, Apple announced that we're the #1 true crime podcast for the month. So that's awesome.
No, it's awesome. And it's an incredible listen, incredible story. Mike King, retired police commander. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Chris.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we're also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.